Hidden in the outskirts of both Farloom and Hallownest, strange beings known as mask makers work tirelessly in their task to provide identities for the faceless. Alongside the nature of their work raising its own questions, these ancient bugs hide their true faces, have an incredibly deep knowledge of the world, and possess a unique ability known as the Sight, all of which makes them one of the biggest mysteries remaining in the lore. Today I'm going to be analyzing basically everything we know about these mask makers to gain a deeper understanding of their role and importance in the world of Hollow Knight and Silksong. Let's get started. So, what exactly is a mask maker? We can begin to understand them through the dialogue of the maker of Hallownest. Is it mask or face upon the creature? In Hallownest, a difficult thing it can be to decipher. A wonderful thing to have a face, not a thing which we are all blessed. For this kingdom's faceless, I shall provide. Well, it's unclear what exactly a faceless bug looks like. We know the purpose of these masks is tied to sentience and identity. A mask, a face, does it need one? Does it not? To define, to focus, to exist. Many bugs in both kingdoms could certainly be wearing masks. For example, most of the pilgrims have these characteristic white faces, or the bugs of the Colosseum of Fools in Hallownest. It is almost impossible to determine which of these are masks and which just naturally have these white faces. But there are also many bugs which are clearly not wearing masks, and others that wear them more like armor, like the hunters of the ant tribe. But this is different from actually wearing one, as we can see their real faces underneath. They aren't taking on a new identity. Still, we do know for certain that at least a large number of these bugs need these masks to have sentience and a defined identity. One unsettling bug we know for certain is wearing a mask is Styx. He's the creepy one in Sinner's Road who wants Hornet to be his master and produces silk eaters. If you use the Silksong ability to reach his nest, you will find a variety of masks, and playing the needle in here gives the following dialogue. The one who serves, the one who breeds, the one to fear. My strength or theirs? Who to be? Who is me? The hazy impression shown also hints at what a faceless bug might look like. Even more disturbing is that in Steel Soul mode, Styx is dead and his killer hides nearby, wearing his face. Skinks hides his body in the shadows and mimics your dialogue, as well as accidentally repeating the final words of his prey, saying, "Someone save me." Based on this thing wearing Styx's face upside down, it is possible he is similar in nature to Nosk, another mimic, which also uses a mask to lure in unsuspecting prey. Skinks will give you rosaries in return for silk eaters, and he has a lot of rosaries, likely taken from his prey. But even in the case of these mimics, these masks do still transfer some identity to the beasts. Skink speaks with a similar speech pattern to Styx, as well as Huntress, who both have similar masks, using the long S sounds. And Nosk changes forms based on if he's using the mask of the Knight in Deep Nest, or Hornets in Godhome. And this really goes to show how central masks are to the ecology of this world, to the point where these predatory mimics have evolved to use them. We also learn more about the process used to create these masks in Silksong. In the delivery quest to the mask maker, we transport liquid lacquer, a pale glaze used in the preparation and protection of bone masks. Ignoring the fact that bugs don't have bones, because Team Cherry uses the term bone interchangeably with shell, it's very interesting that these identities are carved from the remnants of dead bugs, and that a pale substance is needed to protect them. Now, I could be overanalyzing this, but with how massively important the word pale is in this world, I don't think it's too much of a stretch to say that this liquid lacquer could be related to soul, which also takes the form of a liquid. Now, this would have pretty profound implications for these masks, as the makers would then be imbuing the bones of the dead with soul and sculpting it into a new consciousness. We see so many examples of bugs being killed to extract their soul, like in the Soul Sanctum, so it's nice to see the reverse for once. Way to reuse and recycle the souls of the dead, guys. Additionally, spirits like those of the Grim Troop need to possess masks to have a corporeal form in the waking world, and there's even more support for this idea in the form of mask shards, which both Hornet and the Knight use to strengthen their shells, the health of which is of course visually represented by masks. And what do we use to repair these masks? That's right, soul. Or silk, which is just a form of soul unique to the weavers and the Grandmother. Jubilana states that these shards are a part of an ancient mask, or a fractured shard of someone's visage, and it's notable that these mask shards do not override the identity of Hornet or the Knight. But these are both part pale beings we're talking about, and Hornet clearly shows the ability to combine the essence of others into herself by binding crests. So I don't think it's a stretch to say they can use these soul-imbued masks in a unique way from other bugs. One interesting observation about the two mask makers is that they have very different forms, with the Hallownest variant having two extremely long arms and an upright, hunched-over posture, while the Farloom maker possesses a much more rounded body and keeps low to the ground on 4 legs. This makes it clear that despite sharing a name, these are not members of the same species. Instead, the mantle of Mask Maker seems to be tied to the one feature these two do share, which can be only seen after knocking off their masks with a powerful strike: a set of swirling eyes. When in this unmasked state, they have new, more insightful dialogue. "Ah, old one, your kind should know it's rude to expose me such." Unmasked, the task becomes heavy. Hornet replies, "I had a desire to hear you lucid, Maker, though you may protest." And this one line actually tells us a lot. This is their true self, and the masks they wear help them bear their endless task more easily, with the side effect of dulling their minds. And this makes sense. If a face is what defines one's self, then in a way these makers can create new identities for themselves. It's like if a 9-to-5 office worker could put on a mask that made them have endless passion for organizing Excel spreadsheets. Or if I had a mask that made me enjoy writing my thesis. But we can all dream. When in this unmasked state, the maker of Hallownest says, to change a face, to conceal it fully within another, a powerful protection that is, but one with sad consequence. The original mind is destroyed, though those of striking will may still retain a sliver of that concealed self. This line is probably intended to refer to both the mask maker themselves, but also the Knight, whose shell conceals its true void nature. An idea supported by its Dreamnail dialogue, which states, "Does it know the face that hides beneath? Such a remarkable contrast the worm conceived." While we're on the topic of worms, it's also clear that higher beings and makers coexist, likely in every kingdom. Being a mask maker seems to be less a role they are given and more of just an innate part of their nature, in the same way higher beings are vastly different in form, but are all naturally inclined to seek worship by dominating mortal bugs. The mask maker of Farloom makes it particularly clear that this is a necessary role within kingdoms ruled by higher beings. After Hornet confirms she plans to face the grandmother, the maker will say, "Ha, as I'd have guessed, your ancient kind are told to abide one another peaceably. Well, assuming you prevail, I'll ask only that my labor may continue. No matter the state of these lands, you should well know the necessity of my service." And this really does make sense if you consider the fact that a face is required for bugs to have sentience, and higher beings seemingly need intelligent bugs to worship them in order to survive, as we see in the case of Grandmother Silk. While we do see directly that higher beings can grant sentience upon lesser beings, the mask makers seem to be another, separate source of it. But I don't think this means that the mask makers serve the higher beings of their respective kingdoms, quite the opposite. For one, both of them can only be found in the furthest outskirts of these kingdoms, in Deepnest and Mount Fae respectively. Additionally, Maskmaker states, "Faces I grant to all who'd request, not task for I, but aid, gift to a world deserving." What a nice guy. What we learn in Silksong also supports this, as in the delivery quest for Maskmaker, Tip and Pill will tell us, "A delivery deadly, dangerous, fiercely cold, for old bug up there that doesn't need it much. Serves us all he does, so we serve back." This confirms that these makers are providing a necessary role in these civilizations, and that higher beings probably just leave them be because their role is so important. But this begs the question, if mask makers provide masks for the faceless in a kingdom, why are they so goddamn hard to find? You're telling me a faceless bug is completing the frozen parkour at Mount Fae, or surviving the nightmare that is Deepnest? Or the one on Mount Fae just tosses his masks all the way down the mountain and somebody collects them at the bottom. Either way, their inhospitable homes make it clear they wish to remain separate from the politics of their kingdoms, and simply work at their tasks. In Act 3, the mask maker will continue his work despite the danger of the void, stating that his contract remains. But the nature of this contract, who it is with, and why it takes precedent over all else, remains a mystery. One thing for certain is that it isn't with Silk, who is dying miles beneath the void at this point. But let's now dive into what exactly allows these makers to perform such a profound manipulation of soul to create a consciousness. It is tied to the only feature that is shared by the two mask makers, the sight. This ability is something mentioned by Hornet while speaking to the maker after unmasking him. It is almost certainly linked to their strange, swirling eyes. You have the sight maker. Tell me what you see in me. Your mask. It reads clear enough, old one. Watcher, hunter, monarch even, though you may reject that station. So, in simple terms, the sight seems to be an ability which allows one to gain deeper insight into the world than what is possible for others. Eva also has a form of this ability. You see one's nature, Eva? It is a skill far beyond bugs. One not without cost. My sight perceives a bug only through the imprint upon their soul. Essentially, she sees the spirit, but not the body. But this is fundamentally different from the sight of a mask maker, which instead perceives what the body can tell you about the spirit. A mask or a face gives focus and shape to a soul, and I think that is what the makers have the ability to see. Interestingly, these swirling eyes indicative of the sight are actually shared by another character, Mr. Mushroom himself. You can only see these eyes in the secret ending cutscenes unlocked by completing his quests, but it's very clear these are the same design as the makers. Mr. Mushroom, also known as the Herald, does have incredible insight into the world, appearing in kingdoms to observe important events and changes, as well as seeing into other worlds which he is constantly conversing with. This link between Mr. Mushroom and the makers has led some to conclude that these characters all are in-universe stand-ins for the developers themselves, as Mr. Mushroom references other games they have made, such as Hungry Night, and the mask makers are essentially the in-universe version of R.E. Gibson, who drew all of the art for the games and created the faces of these characters. I generally don't focus on meta-commentary like this, but I thought it was an interesting theory, so I've included it here. The last thing I want to discuss are the open questions around the mask makers, because there are a few interesting mysteries surrounding these two that I hope get expanded on in the future. The first is their connection to the void. In Hollow Knight, the mask maker has black void markings under his eyes, like many of the other consumed bugs we find throughout Hollow Nest. The Silksong maker has a completely black face, so it's impossible to tell if he also has these markings, or if this is unique to the Hollow Nest maker simply because the void is more active in this kingdom. It's also worth noting that despite being extremely old, the mask makers are mortal bugs, as when you complete the delivery quest, you receive this dialogue. Maker, I bring a delivery from Bellheart below. Lacquer for your long work. Ah, know you distort the order of things, old one. It is a rare want of your caste to serve us mortal bugs. So, this raises the question, if there are only one mask maker in each kingdom, and they are mortal, then where do new mask makers come from? Are certain bugs just born as mask makers? Or is there an apprenticeship program for new graduates from the mask making trade school? Let me know your theories in the comments. Regardless, I hope Team Cherry decides to give us more lore about these captivating characters. And that's the video. Thanks for watching, and if you enjoyed, leave a like and subscribe for more Silksong content. And as always, I hope to see you next time.